No More Sleep Game Script is all about helping fantasy football owners with their week-to-week matchups. Rather than relying on things like sit-start lists, which is focused on players, that's unpredictable, okay? You don't know what injuries are going to take place. You don't know if someone gets cut, retired, or your team might look different. The team you have today might look different next week because of waiver wire or trade, or whatever the case may be. At No More Sleep, our focus is to give you information so you can make informed decisions. And when it comes to understanding who to start and who to bench, the best thing to do is look at game script because, as we say, coaches don't get injured. All right, so for the Bucs, Week 2, 2019, here's what you want to focus on. There are 4 conclusions in this matchup against the Panthers. Before we do that, let me explain last week. It's important because Bruce Arians, that was his first game, and we need to understand what the game script might look like. Now, it's only a small sample size, but we do think that this is probably a foreshadow of what's going to happen. So basically what we saw was, the Buccaneers last year, they ranked top 10 in pretty much every stat related to passing attempts and receiving. So they were number 2 last year in receiving average, number 1 in receptions, receiving yards per game, top 10 in receptions, and number 2 in receptions of 20 plus. So that air raid system that Dirk Cutter was so fond of, you can expect that to be dialed back with Bruce Arians because the sample size that we saw in week 1 is that he's going to increase more focus on the run, and they do have running backs that are capable. We'll talk about Ronald Jones in a second. So if the running is going to take up about 40% of the overall offense, you can expect Jameis Winston to have less pass attempts overall at the end of the year. He will still be in the top 5 probably of pass attempts. Okay, so it's not going to be completely off record, but it just means that air yards per target, one of the metrics that you will pay attention to a lot for identifying who to start on the Buccaneers, is not going to be that important this year. However, in this game, it will be. Now, 4 conclusions. So we talked about the air raid being dialed back, so that's conclusion number 1. Conclusion number 2 is that in this matchup against the Panthers week 2, you want to get the running back that has these 2 stats. Rushing average of 4.5 yards or more, and a breakaway run, whoever has the highest breakaway run rate, okay? If you have both Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber, for example, Ronald Jones will be the person to start over Peyton Barber. Again, we don't tell you what players to start, but statistically speaking, he has the better chance of being successful in this matchup against the Panthers. That could change next week, though, right? So breakaway run rate and rushing average is what you want to pay attention to in week 2. As far as receivers, you want to pay attention to 3 things. Red zone share, so red zone target share, receptions of 20 plus, and air yards per target. Now, you just heard me say that that's not going to be an important stat this year. It will be in this game against the Panthers based on the Panthers' weaknesses, considering week 1 as well. So we baked that in as well. So an example of someone who meets that bill the most is Chris Godwin. Are we saying start Chris Godwin? No. If he's the only person you got on your team from the Buccaneers and you have other receivers from other teams, you need to do the same exercise with those other receivers before you say start Chris Godwin. Again, we're looking at game script, okay? We're not telling you what players to start. So please understand, look at Chris Godwin's strengths against the Panthers in week 2, and then look at the strengths of your other receivers against their opponent in week 2. And whoever has the better outlook is the one you start, okay? So that's the situation. If you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and you only have a spot for one of them, then in that scenario, you go with Chris Godwin. Why? Because he's the closest to the receiving receptions of 20 plus, air yards per target, and red zone target share. You might have multiple people who hit all of those metrics. So then what you have to look at is who have the highest one based on their snap share. You can't say, okay, Mike Evans has a higher blah, 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 when he had 30% more snap share than the person you're looking at. You have to keep snap share in mind. So if the 2 people you're comparing have drastically different snap shares, then what you do is basically take the difference of what the snap share is, okay? So if Chris Godwin had 30% more snap share than someone else, then just take that and basically Make that a make it 0.3. Okay, so if it's 40%, make it 0.4. If it's 50%, make it 0.5, and deduct that from the stat that you're looking at. There you go. All right. So, and the last thing is time of possession should be higher this week than it was last week. It's simple. Buccaneers give their opponents a ton of opportunities to have short fields. The Buccaneers, they turn the ball over quite a lot. I already talked about James Winston being, he passed the ball quite a lot, but he was also infamous for throwing the most interceptable passes. And this year he's starting off strong by doing that again. He's number one in the most interceptable passes. That's not a good thing. I'm being sarcastic. So he's one thing you can rely on is him throwing interceptable passes. Panthers' strength isn't necessarily interceptions. However, their strength is taking advantage of short fields. So if they do get that turnover, then you can expect them to score quickly. They score quickly when they have a short field. You don't give C-Mac short fields. We think that's going to happen in this game, which means ball goes back to the Buccaneers. Buccaneers have better time of possession because they're going to have the ball quite a lot. That means opportunities for Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, Ronald Jones, Peyton, whoever, all these guys. It means opportunity for them because Winston is going to make more attempts, more passing attempts. We'll have to look at the rushing. We'll see. But data is pointing towards 40% of the entire offense will be running. But we can definitely tell you that pass attempts wise, James Winston's going to have more pass attempts this week than he had last week. We don't have enough information to tell you how many rushing attempts the running backs will have. So there you have it. That's the Buccaneers side. Look for videos for the other teams and matchups. We'll do the Panthers in a separate video as well. No more sleep, game script. Go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe so you can keep up to date. As you can see, we're breaking these down now. We're not doing two teams at once. So you need to subscribe so you can see the videos because they're going to be cranked out faster. And I have to mention this video is sponsored by Fan Life, the sports app. Fan Life, spelled FANLYFE.com.
Get it, go get it, I got it. Get it, go get it, I got it. Get it, go get it, I got it. Get it, go.